Imagine returning home after the strangest experience of your life, only to realize something is horribly wrong. Your wife stares through you like glass. Your children don't recognize your face. Your name has been erased from every photograph, every record, every memory. You exist, but to everyone you love, you simply don't. What you're about to hear are 10 documented cases of time travelers who came back, only to discover they'd become invisible to the people they loved most. Imagine holding a photograph of your own family, your wife, your children, the people you love more than anything in this world. Now, imagine looking at that photograph and realizing your face has vanished from it, not scratched out, not torn away, simply gone, as if you were never there at all. This is exactly what happened to a man named Miroslav Kovatch, and his story is one of the most disturbing time travel cases ever documented. March 14th, 1987. Bratislava, Slovakia. Miroslav Kovatch, a 38-year-old factory supervisor, leaves work at exactly 5:47 in the evening. It's a routine walk home, the same path he's taken for 15 years. But on this particular evening, something is different. Witnesses later report seeing Miroslav enter a pedestrian tunnel beneath a railway crossing. They watch him walk into the shadows, and then nothing. He never emerges from the other side. Search teams scour the tunnel for weeks. Police interview dozens of witnesses. But there's no body, no belongings, no sign of struggle. Miroslav Kovatch has simply vanished into thin air. His wife Elena and their 2 young sons are devastated. They mourn for months, then years, then decades. Eventually, all that remains is the memory of a husband and father who walked into a tunnel and never came home. But here's where this story takes a truly disturbing turn. 32 years later, in October 2019, a confused middle-aged man appears near that same railway tunnel. He's barefoot, disoriented, wearing outdated clothing that looks like it belongs in a museum. When police approach him, he introduces himself as Miroslav Kovatch. Officers assume he's mentally ill, but when they compare his face to photographs from 1987, they freeze. The resemblance is identical. Same jawline, same eyes. Even a tiny scar on his left cheek matches perfectly. For the world, 32 years have passed. For this man, it seems like only minutes. Miroslav immediately asks about his wife and children. He wants to go home. He wants to hold his family. So, imagine his horror when he finally tracks down Elena, now elderly and living in a care facility. He rushes toward her, tears streaming down his face. He calls her name, and she stares right through him like glass. No recognition, no spark of memory, nothing. Elena has no recollection of ever being married. According to every official record, she lived her entire life as a single mother. Miroslav's sons have no memory of having a father at all. And then comes the detail that makes this case truly terrifying. Miroslav still carries old family photographs in his wallet, pictures from his wedding, from birthdays, from ordinary Sunday afternoons. But when he looks at them now, something is horribly wrong. Every photograph shows empty spaces where he once stood. His image has been erased from his own memories. Even his signature on old documents has faded beyond recognition, as if reality itself is rejecting his existence. Some researchers believe Miroslav experienced what they call temporal displacement erasure. According to this theory, when someone travels through time, they don't just move between moments, they're removed from the timeline they left behind. Reality heals around their absence like skin closing over a wound. Memories adapt, records change, physical evidence disappears. The traveler returns to a world that evolved without them, a world that no longer has room for who they used to be. Miroslav reportedly sits outside Elena's care facility every single day. He watches her through the window. She walks past him without a glance, without recognition, without any sense that the love of her life is standing just feet away. He exists in the same world as his family, but to them, he is invisible. He is no one. He is a ghost haunting a life that no longer includes him. The case of Miroslav Kovatch forces us to confront a terrifying question. What if coming back is worse than never returning at all? What if the price of traveling through time is losing everyone who ever loved you? But trust me, that was only the beginning. The next case takes this horror to an entirely new level. What if you stepped off a train and entered a world where you had been dead for 30 years? What if every person who ever loved you believed they buried you decades ago? This is the nightmare that became reality for a woman named Yuki Tanaka, and her story will make you question everything you think you know about the world around you. September 3rd, 2015, Tokyo, Japan. Yuki Tanaka, a 34-year-old accountant, boards her usual morning commuter train. It's a routine she's followed for 6 years. Same platform, same time, same crowded car filled with silent passengers. But as the train enters the tunnel between Shibuya and Shinjuku, something strange happens. The lights flicker violently. A pressure builds in her ears like descending in an airplane, and through the window she notices a faint blue shimmer dancing along the tunnel walls. Then, everything returns to normal. The train emerges into daylight. Yuki steps onto the platform at her usual station, thinking nothing of it. But when she arrives at her office, her desk belongs to someone else. Human Resources has no record of her employment. Her confused coworkers stare at her like she's a stranger who wandered in from the street. Yuki rushes to her apartment, but a family she's never seen answers the door. They've lived there for 12 years. Her phone contacts lead to strangers. Her bank accounts don't exist. Her identification cards trigger no matches in any government database. In the span of one train ride, Yuki Tanaka has been erased from her own life. Desperate for answers, she travels to her childhood home to find her mother. She pounds on the door, heart racing, praying for something familiar. Her mother opens the door and immediately bursts into tears. But these aren't tears of joy. They're tears of absolute horror. Because according to her mother, Yuki Tanaka died in a car accident when she was 4 years old. She shows Yuki the grave, the weathered headstone, 30 years of memorial photographs. In this reality, Yuki has been dead since 1989. But Yuki remembers everything: her childhood, her school friends, her first job, her apartment, her entire existence. None of it happened here. This world moved forward without her for 3 decades. And now she stands before her own gravestone, reading her own name carved in granite, trying to comprehend how any of this is possible. Some researchers believe Yuki didn't travel through time at all. They believe she traveled to a parallel timeline, a branching reality where one tragic accident changed everything. That strange blue shimmer in the tunnel may have been a dimensional intersection, a point where 2 versions of reality briefly overlapped. Yuki stepped off the train in the wrong universe entirely. But here's the detail that makes this case truly haunting. Yuki can interact with the physical world. She can touch objects, open doors, speak to strangers. But anyone who knew her before 1989 cannot perceive her at all. To them, she is completely invisible. Her mother looks through her like empty air. Childhood friends walk past without recognition. Only people born after her supposed death can see and interact with her. It's as if the universe itself is enforcing a rule. You cannot exist to those who already grieved your loss. Yuki reportedly still lives in Tokyo today. She built a new life among strangers, working jobs, forming friendships with people who never knew the 4-year-old girl who died in 1989. But every year, on the anniversary of her death, she returns to her mother's home. She sits beside the elderly woman as she weeps at a small memorial altar. She watches her mother light incense and whisper prayers to a daughter she believes is gone forever. And Yuki sits there, invisible, unable to offer comfort, unable to say the words that might ease decades of grief. If you exist in a world where you already died, what does that make you? A survivor? A ghost? Something in between? The case of Yuki Tanaka offers no answers, only the haunting question that remains. But the next case proves that sometimes the people we love most can become strangers in a single heartbeat. Imagine standing at your own wedding reception. The champagne is flowing, the music is playing, and the woman you love more than anything is dancing in her white dress just feet away. Now, imagine stepping outside for a breath of fresh air, and when you return just minutes later, your bride is married to someone else. She doesn't recognize your face. Your best friend is wearing the groom's tuxedo, and every single person at the reception is staring at you like you're a stranger who crashed their party. This is exactly what happened to Marcus Webb, and his story is absolutely devastating. June 22, 2008, Liverpool, England. Marcus Webb, a 29-year-old software developer, marries his fiancée Sophie at a beautiful countryside estate. 150 guests fill the reception hall. A live band plays their favorite songs. Champagne toasts echo through the night. It's the happiest day of Marcus's life. At 9:47 in the evening, he steps outside to escape the heat and catch his breath. He walks toward a gazebo at the edge of the property, admiring the stars. But as he approaches, he notices something strange. A faint humming sound, a subtle distortion in the air, like heat rising from summer pavement. Then, everything goes white. Marcus wakes up lying in the grass. His head is pounding. He assumes he fainted, maybe from exhaustion or too much champagne. Only minutes seem to have passed. He stands, brushes off his tuxedo, and walks back toward the reception. The music is different now, but guests are still dancing. Everything looks normal. He spots Sophie across the room and moves toward her, smiling, ready to sweep her into his arms. But when Sophie turns and sees him, she screams. She doesn't recognize him. She's wearing a completely different wedding dress. And standing beside her, his arm around her waist, is Marcus's best friend Daniel. He's wearing a groom's tuxedo. The wedding banner above them reads, "Sophie and Daniel." Marcus tries to speak, tries to explain, but security guards grab him before he can say a word. They drag him outside and threaten to call the police. He's been removed from his own wedding as a crasher. In the days that follow, Marcus desperately searches for answers. He obtains a copy of the wedding video. What he sees destroys him. The footage shows Sophie walking down the aisle, radiant and beautiful. But at the altar, only Daniel waits. There is no Marcus. In every photograph from the ceremony where Marcus should be standing, there is only empty space. The original marriage certificate no longer exists. A new one shows Sophie married to Daniel on the exact same date. Some researchers call this phenomenon timeline replacement. They believe Marcus didn't simply disappear. He was overwritten. In the moments he spent near that gazebo, reality itself was rewritten. Daniel became Sophie's intended husband. Their relationship, their engagement, their wedding, all of it now exists as if Marcus was never part of the story. His entire history with Sophie has been erased and given to someone else. Marcus still carries his wedding ring. The inscription inside reads M and S forever. But those initials mean nothing now. Sophie reportedly experiences strange déjà vu whenever she encounters Marcus. A flicker of something familiar she can't explain, but there's no actual memory, no recognition. Just an unsettling feeling that passes as quickly as it arrives. Sophie and Daniel remain happily married to this day. They have 2 children, a home, a life, the life that was supposed to belong to Marcus. He watches from a distance, unable to move on, unable to form another relationship. He describes the feeling as a phantom limb. Sophie is gone, but he still feels her presence every single day. What's worse, being forgotten by everyone who ever loved you, or watching someone else live the life that was supposed to be yours? Marcus Webb never found the answer, but the next case shows what happens when a father returns to find his own daughter has no idea he exists. Imagine sitting in a hospital room, holding your daughter's hand as machines beep around you. She's 12 years old. The doctors say she has weeks to live. You haven't slept in days. You haven't eaten. You've made every prayer, every desperate bargain with the universe. You would do anything to save her, anything at all. Now imagine waking up 6 months later to find her alive and healthy. The disease is gone. She's laughing, playing, living the life you dreamed she would have. But when you approach her, she backs away in fear. She has no idea who you are. This is the story of Carlos Menddees, and it will break your heart. February 2016. Buenos Aires, Argentina. Carlos Menddees, a 45-year-old architect, receives the worst news of his life. His daughter Lucia, just 12 years old, has been diagnosed with a rare blood disease. Doctors give her weeks, maybe a month. Carlos refuses to leave her side. He sleeps in a chair beside her hospital bed every single night. He reads her stories when she's too weak to speak. He holds her hand during every painful procedure. March 18th, 2016. 3:47 in the morning. The monitors flatline. Lucia's heart stops. Carlos screams for doctors, clutching her small hand in both of his, begging her not to leave. A strange light fills the room. Carlos feels himself being pulled backward, like falling through water. His vision blurs. And then, everything goes completely dark. When Carlos opens his eyes, he's lying in an alley 3 blocks from the hospital. It's daytime. The sun is warm. He scrambles to his feet and runs back toward the hospital, terrified of what he'll find. But when he arrives, nothing makes sense. Lucia isn't there. Hospital records show she was never admitted. There's no diagnosis, no treatment history, no record of her illness at all. According to every database, Lucia Menddees was never sick. Carlos rushes home, his mind spinning. And there she is. Lucia, 12 years old, healthy. Playing with friends in the front yard, his heart nearly stops. She's alive. His prayers were answered. He runs toward her, tears streaming down his face. But Lucia backs away, frightened by this stranger running at her. She doesn't recognize him. She screams for her mother. Carlos's wife emerges from the house and immediately calls the police. She says she's been a single mother her entire life. She has no husband. She's never seen this man before. When Carlos begs her to remember, she threatens a restraining order. Government records confirm the nightmare. Lucia's birth certificate lists a different father, a man who died in a car accident in 2005. Carlos Menddees doesn't exist in his daughter's life. Some researchers believe Carlos experienced a temporal exchange. His desperate prayer, his absolute willingness to sacrifice anything, may have triggered something impossible. Lucia was saved. But the price was Carlos himself. He was erased from her timeline, removed from her history as if he'd never existed. He traded his place in her life for her survival. Carlos still carries photographs of baby Lucia in his arms. But in every image, his face is blurred beyond recognition. He reportedly watches her from a distance now. He knows her school schedule, her favorite foods, the sound of her laugh. He's seen her grow into a young woman. She's 21 now, studying medicine, completely unaware that her real father exists just blocks away. Witnesses say Carlos sometimes whispers to himself when he watches her. Just 3 words, over and over again. It was worth it. If saving someone you love meant erasing yourself from their life completely, would you make that trade? Could you watch your child grow up knowing they'll never know who you really are? Carlos Menddees made his choice, and he lives with it every single day. We're only halfway through these cases, and trust me, what's coming next is far more disturbing. Over 80% of you watching aren't subscribed yet. Hit that button now so you don't miss a single revelation. What if you returned home to discover you were never born? Not that you died, not that you were forgotten, but that you simply never existed at all, that your mother never carried you, that your birth was erased from reality itself. This is what happened to a man named Euan Mloud, and his story involves something even more disturbing. A twin brother who has no memory of ever being a twin. August 2021, the Scottish Highlands. Euan Mloud, a 28-year-old photographer from Edinburgh, sets out on a solo hiking trip through the remote wilderness. He's done this dozens of times before. The solitude clears his mind. The landscapes fill his camera with images he'll later sell to travel magazines. But on the 3rd day of his journey, Euan discovers something that isn't on any map. A stone circle hidden in a valley, ancient and weathered, arranged in a perfect spiral. He's never seen anything like it. He raises his camera and steps inside to capture the shot. The moment his foot crosses the outer ring, the air grows impossibly heavy. A thick mist rolls in from nowhere, glowing faintly from within as if lit by some invisible source. Euan feels his body become weightless. His vision blurs. The last thing he remembers is the sensation of falling upward, like gravity itself had reversed. Then, everything goes black. When Euan wakes, he's lying on grass beside a road. His phone is dead. His camera is completely empty, every photograph erased. He stumbles to the nearest village and learns the horrifying truth. 3 weeks have passed. His family reported him missing. Search teams scoured the highlands, but found nothing. He hitchhikes back to Edinburgh, desperate to let his family know he's alive. But when he arrives at his childhood home, his mother answers the door and stares at him with complete confusion. She doesn't recognize her own son. According to her, she has only one child, a son named Callum, Euan's twin brother. But there is no twin, there never was. Birth certificates confirm a single child. School records show Callum alone in every class photo. Childhood pictures display one boy where two should stand. In this reality, Euan Mloud was never born. Desperate for answers, Euan tracks down Callum and confronts him face to face. They look absolutely identical. Same height, same voice, same face staring back like a mirror. But Callum is terrified. He calls Euan a stalker. He threatens to call the police. He has no memory of having a brother. When Euan shows him a birthmark they both share in the exact same spot, Callum goes pale. Something flickers behind his eyes. Recognition that can't quite reach the surface. Some researchers call this phenomenon singular collapse. They believe the stone circle was a quantum choice point, a location where two possible realities existed simultaneously, two twins or one. When Euan stepped inside, reality collapsed into the single-child state. Callum now exists alone, containing fragments of both brothers merged into one person. Some of Callum's memories don't match his own life, moments he can't explain, skills he never learned, dreams of a brother he never had. Euan found one photograph that survived on his camera, corrupted but partially visible. It shows two teenage boys with their arms around each other, laughing. Euan and Callum. Proof of a reality that no longer exists. When Callum saw the image, he stared at it for nearly 20 minutes. Finally, he whispered something that haunts everyone who hears this story. "I feel like I've lost something I never had." Euan reportedly lives in Glasgow now, under a different name. He built a new identity from nothing, but witnesses say he sometimes appears in Edinburgh, watching Callum from across crowded streets. They have never spoken again. Euan insists that part of him still exists inside his brother, a ghost sharing the same face, trapped in memories that belong to no one. If reality decides you were never supposed to exist, can you prove that you're real? Euan Mloud still doesn't have an answer, but the next case shows what happens when someone becomes invisible to their own spouse while leaving behind messages from places that don't exist. Imagine receiving a phone call from someone who vanished 7 years ago. Her voice sounds distant, distorted, like she's speaking through water. She tells you she's trapped somewhere between moments, a place where time doesn't move the way it should. She says she loves you. She says she's trying to come home. And then the line goes dead. Now, imagine receiving 800 more messages just like it over the next 7 years. This is the story of Anna Kowalsski, and it's one of the most heartbreaking cases we've ever covered. October 14th, 2011. Warsaw, Poland. Anna Kowalsski, a 36-year-old teacher, finishes her workday and walks to her car in an underground parking garage. Security cameras show her entering the garage at 5:23 in the evening. She walks toward her vehicle, keys in hand, and then she simply vanishes. One frame she's there, the next frame she's gone, no flash of light, no visible anomaly. Just empty concrete where a woman stood seconds before. Her husband Tomasz searches frantically. Police investigate for months, but there's no body, no evidence of abduction, no explanation whatsoever. Anna Kowalsski has disappeared without a trace. 1 month later, Tomasz receives a voice message from Anna's phone number. Her voice sounds strange, echoing, layered with static. "Tomasz, I don't know where I am. Everything is gray here. Time doesn't move the same way." Over the next 7 years, Tomasz receives 847 messages. Some arrive hours apart. Others are separated by years. But for Anna, each message seems to follow the last by only moments. She describes a world of endless gray, fragments of different times flickering around her like broken television channels. She sees glimpses of the past, shadows of the future. She's trapped in what she calls the space between seconds. Then, in 2018, something impossible happens. Anna suddenly appears in the same parking garage where she vanished. She's wearing the exact same clothes from 2011. She's aged only weeks. She races home, heart pounding, desperate to see her husband. But when she knocks on the door, Tomasz opens it and stares directly through her. He cannot see her. He cannot hear her voice. A woman appears behind him. His new wife. 2 children peek around her legs. Tomasz remarried. He built a new life. And Anna is invisible to all of them. Anna quickly discovers the horrifying truth. Anyone who knew her before 2011 cannot perceive her existence. She's intangible to them, like a ghost passing through walls. But strangers can see her perfectly. Tomasz's new wife notices Anna standing on the porch and asks who she is. Tomasz says no one is there. Two people looking at the same spot, seeing completely different realities. Researchers theorize that Anna was trapped in a temporal interstice, a space outside normal time where moments stretch into infinity. When she finally escaped, she returned at a different frequency, a vibrational state her loved ones can no longer perceive. She exists beside them, but in a dimension they cannot access. Anna reportedly moved into her old home. She watches Tomasz's family eat breakfast. She sits beside him while he watches television. She can move objects. Doors open by themselves. Items shift inexplicably. The family attributes these occurrences to drafts and old pipes. They have no idea Anna is right there, reaching for them, unable to make contact. Tomasz still has all 847 voice messages saved on his phone. He doesn't remember who sent them. The contact name shows only a string of corrupted characters. But sometimes late at night, he plays them anyway. He can't explain why they make him weep. Anna sits beside him, invisible, listening to her own voice echo through the room, whispering responses he will never hear. What does it mean to finally come home if home no longer knows you exist? Anna Kowalsski found her answer, and she lives with it every single day. We're now entering the 5 most disturbing cases in this collection. If you're not subscribed yet, you're about to miss something that will change how you think about time forever. Subscribe now before the next case begins. Imagine walking into your kitchen to find 3 strangers staring at you. They're teenagers, frozen in shock, their faces pale with disbelief. You don't recognize them, but something about their eyes feels impossibly familiar. And then one of them whispers a single word, "Mom." Now imagine learning that these strangers are your children, that you've been gone for 15 years, and that they spent their entire lives believing you died the day the youngest was born. This is the story of Rachel Torres, and it will haunt you long after you hear it. June 7th, 2003. Portland, Oregon. Rachel Torres, a 31-year-old nurse, is home with her 3 children. Emma is 8 years old, Jake is 5, baby Lily is just 6 months, sleeping peacefully in her crib. It's a quiet afternoon. The sunlight streams through the windows. Rachel hears a strange sound from the backyard, a low humming that seems to vibrate in her chest. She walks outside to investigate, leaving her children playing safely inside. Near the old oak tree at the edge of the property, Rachel notices something that stops her cold. A shimmering distortion hangs in the air, like heat rising from summer asphalt, but brighter, more defined. Curiosity pulls her closer. She reaches out her hand, and the moment her fingers touch the distortion, light swallows her completely. When Rachel opens her eyes, she's lying on her back porch. The sun is still shining. Birds are still singing. It feels like only seconds have passed. She stands up, brushes off her clothes, and walks back inside. But the moment she steps through the door, she screams. Everything has changed. The furniture is different. The walls are painted colors she's never chosen. Family photographs she doesn't recognize hang in frames she's never seen. And standing in her living room are 3 teenagers, staring at her with absolute horror. Rachel doesn't recognize their faces. But then the oldest one speaks. She says one word that shatters Rachel's entire world. "Mom, these teenagers are her children. Emma is now 23, Jake is 20, baby Lily is 15. For Rachel, seconds have passed. For her children, 15 years have vanished. And every single one of those years was spent believing their mother died during Lily's birth. Their father raised them alone until his heart attack in 2014. They've been orphans ever since." Emma breaks down sobbing, reaching for her mother. But her hands pass directly through Rachel's body. She cannot touch her. Jake can only see Rachel in his peripheral vision. When he looks directly at her, she vanishes completely. And Lily, the baby Rachel held just moments ago, cannot perceive her mother at all. To her, Rachel doesn't exist. Researchers call this phenomenon temporal anchoring. The theory suggests that grief can become so profound, it crystallizes into reality itself. Rachel's children spent 15 years mourning her death. Their belief became a fixed point in time. When Rachel returned, reality had already hardened around her absence. The younger the child when she disappeared, the weaker their temporal connection. Emma has fragments. Jake has shadows. Lily has nothing at all. Rachel reportedly still lives in that Portland house. She watches her children navigate adult lives she was never part of. Emma's first heartbreak, Jake's college graduation, Lily's 16th birthday. All the moments a mother dreams of sharing, experienced from behind an invisible wall she cannot break through. Emma sometimes pauses in doorways, claiming she feels her mother's presence. Jake sets an empty chair at family dinners without understanding why. But Lily feels nothing. To her, Rachel Torres is just a name on a gravestone, a woman she never knew. If you missed your children's entire lives in what felt like seconds, could you ever forgive yourself? Even knowing it wasn't your choice? Rachel Torres asks herself that question every single day. She watches her children grow older while she remains frozen at 31, a ghost in her own home, loving 3 people who will never know she came back. But the next case reveals what happens when someone returns from time travel, existing on a frequency no human can perceive. He can pick up a coffee cup, but cannot hold his daughter's hand. He appears in photographs, but casts no reflection in mirrors. He has lived in his family home for over 2 decades, watching his wife remarry, watching his daughter grow up, watching every precious moment unfold just inches away. And not once has anyone been able to see him. This is the story of Klaus Brener. And it's unlike anything you've ever heard. November 1998. Munich, Germany. Klaus Brener, a 42-year-old quantum physicist, works at a private research facility on the outskirts of the city. His team studies electromagnetic fields and their effects on physical matter. They believe certain frequencies can cause objects to phase between different states of existence. It's cutting-edge science, decades ahead of mainstream understanding. On November 12th, during a routine experiment, the equipment malfunctions catastrophically. Klaus is exposed to an unprecedented burst of energy. His colleagues watch in horror as his body flickers like a dying light bulb. And then he simply vanishes. 3 years later, in 2001, security cameras at the same facility record something impossible. A figure materializes in the middle of the laboratory. It's Klaus Brener, still wearing his 1998 lab coat, looking disoriented and confused. He walks out of the building without speaking to anyone and heads directly home. When Klaus arrives at his family house, his wife Ingrid is working in the garden. He calls her name, his voice cracking with emotion. She doesn't respond. He walks closer, reaches out to touch her shoulder. His hand passes through her body like smoke through air. She walks inside without acknowledging his existence. Klaus follows, desperate, screaming her name. Nothing. To Ingrid, her husband is still missing. The man standing 3 feet away doesn't exist. Klaus quickly discovers the horrifying truth about his condition. He can interact with inanimate objects without any problem. Doors open at his touch. He can move furniture, type on computers, write notes on paper. But living beings are completely intangible to him. His wife, his daughter, his former colleagues, everyone who breathes passes through his hands like he's made of nothing at all. However, cameras can capture his image perfectly. Photographs show him clearly, but mirrors reflect only empty space where he stands. Klaus theorizes that the energy burst shifted his atomic vibration to a different frequency. He occupies the same physical space as his family, but exists at a different temporal rate. Living beings with their own biological frequencies cannot synchronize with his altered state. Inanimate objects have no frequency conflict, which is why he can interact with them normally. Desperate to communicate, Klaus develops a system. He types messages on Ingrid's computer. He arranges letters on the kitchen table. At first, Ingrid believes the house is haunted, but over time, she realizes the presence is Klaus. She cannot see him. She cannot hear his voice, but she knows he's there. They build a relationship through written words, conversations that take hours to complete one exchange at a time. But life moves forward even when love cannot. In 2010, Ingrid remarries. Klaus attends the ceremony, invisible, standing in the back of the church watching his wife promise forever to another man. He doesn't blame her. How could he? She deserves a life he can no longer give her. His daughter grew up, graduated university, married, had children of her own. Klaus witnessed every milestone from behind glass that no one else can see. Klaus has kept a journal for over 2 decades, documenting his invisible existence. His wife cannot read his handwriting anymore, so he leaves pages open to specific entries, hoping she might sense his presence. One entry, dated last year, reads simply, "I am here. I have always been here. I will never leave." If you could be present for every moment of your family's life, but never touch them, never hold them, never feel their warmth against your skin, would that presence be enough? Or would it become the loneliest prison imaginable? Klaus Brener knows the answer, but the next case spans 70 years and involves a soldier who never stopped writing letters to a family that could never see him return. Imagine receiving a letter from someone who disappeared 80 years ago. The handwriting is unmistakable. The details are impossible to fake. But the postmark shows a date that hasn't happened yet. Now imagine receiving hundreds of these letters over decades, each one sent from a different point in time, each one written by a man desperately trying to find his way home. This is the story of Private William Harrell, and it spans 70 years of heartbreak. June 1944, Normandy, France. William Harrell, a 22-year-old American soldier, fights in the chaos following D-Day. His unit pushes inland through hedgerows and burning villages. On the night of June 18th, during a patrol through unfamiliar territory, William's squad encounters a strange fog rolling across the fields. It moves against the wind, thick and unnatural, glowing faintly in the moonlight. William volunteers to investigate. He walks into the fog, and he never returns. His family receives a telegram weeks later, missing in action, presumed dead. His mother keeps his bedroom exactly as he left it, refusing to accept that her son is gone. She dies in 1962, still waiting for him to come home. But 3 months after William's disappearance, something extraordinary happens. A letter arrives at the Harrell family home. It's addressed in William's handwriting, describing strange events he cannot explain. He writes that he's lost, moving through places that look like home but feel wrong. The postmark reads 1958, a date 14 years in the future. Over the following decades, the Harrell family receives over 200 letters. Each one is postmarked from a different year, 1967, 1974, 1989, 2003. William ages in these letters. His handwriting changes. His concerns evolve. In early letters, he asks about his parents. In later ones, he asks about nieces and nephews who hadn't been born when he disappeared. He describes glimpses of different eras, brief moments when he can interact with the world before being pulled away again. Then, in 2014, an elderly man appears at the Harrell family home. He's in his early 90s, wearing weathered civilian clothes, carrying a worn leather satchel. He matches military photographs of William Harrell exactly. Same eyes, same jawline, same quiet determination in his expression. He walks slowly to the front door and knocks. William's youngest sister, now 89 years old, answers. She stares directly at him without recognition. William speaks her name, his voice trembling with 7 decades of longing. She hears nothing. To her, no one is standing on the porch. Her brother died in France 70 years ago. The man before her doesn't exist. William sets his dog tags on the table. His sister watches them materialize from thin air. She can touch the cold metal, read his name stamped into the surface. But the man who placed them there remains invisible. Reality will not allow her to perceive someone she has already grieved and buried. Researchers call this temporal drift. William has been moving through time uncontrollably since 1944. Each jump deposits him briefly in a different era. He mails letters during these stops, hoping they'll reach his family. But his displacement makes him imperceptible to anyone who knew him before the fog took him. Only strangers born after 1944 can see him clearly. The current homeowners, a young couple who bought the house in 2008, describe an elderly man who appears occasionally. He sits in the corner of the living room for hours, reading old letters, whispering names, sometimes weeping quietly. They've learned not to disturb him. They say he seems peaceful, in a heartbroken sort of way. William's final letter, dated 2021, contains just one sentence. "I am coming home, but I know you won't see me." True to his word, witnesses report that an elderly man arrived at the Harrell home in 2022. He sat on the porch until dawn, invisible to the family sleeping inside. Then he was gone. What does it mean to spend a lifetime trying to reach people who can never know you returned? But our final case is the most disturbing of all. A woman who traveled back to save her mother. The problem? Her mother is 6 years old. What if you traveled back in time to save your mother's life, only to discover she's a child who has no idea who you are? What if the person you came to rescue cannot see you, cannot hear you, cannot feel your presence at all? What if you were forced to watch her entire life unfold, knowing you could never change a single moment? This is the story of Elena S, and it's the most disturbing time travel case we've ever covered. The year is 2089. According to Elena, the world has been devastated by a cascading ecological collapse. Billions are dead. Cities lie in ruins. Her mother died in 2031, one of countless victims in the early waves of destruction. Elena has carried that grief her entire life. So, when a resistance group develops experimental time travel technology, she volunteers immediately. The mission is simple: travel to 2026, find her mother, deliver a warning that could change everything. Elena remembers the moment of departure vividly. A blinding flash, a sensation of being pulled apart atom by atom, and then stillness. When she opens her eyes, she's standing in a suburban neighborhood in Osaka, Japan. The air is clean, the sky is blue. She's made it. March 2026. She locates her mother's childhood address and walks toward the house, rehearsing the words she's waited her entire life to say. A woman answers the door. Elena's heart stops. She recognizes the face from old photographs. But something is wrong. This woman is too young, and standing behind her is a little girl, maybe 6 years old, clutching a stuffed rabbit. Elena stares at the child. The truth crashes over her like ice water. Her calculations were wrong. The technology malfunctioned. She hasn't arrived in 2026 at all. She's decades too early. The woman at the door is her grandmother. The little girl is her grandmother's sister. Her mother hasn't been born yet. Elena tries to explain. She steps forward, reaching out, but the woman stares through her like empty glass. Elena speaks, but no one responds. She screams, but no one flinches. Her hands pass through their bodies like smoke. In this timeline, Elena's mother doesn't exist yet, which means Elena herself was never born. She's a living paradox, physically present but causally impossible. Reality cannot acknowledge someone who shouldn't exist. Elena spent months trying to interact with this world. She can affect objects. Books fall when she touches them. Doors swing open at her push, but no human being can perceive her presence. She's a ghost haunting a world that has no place for her. Eventually, Elena found others like herself. Temporal refugees trapped in paradox states, invisible to everyone except each other. They formed a small community, sharing stories of the lives they lost and the people they can never reach. But Elena couldn't stay with them. She had to watch. She returned to her grandmother's house year after year. She watched the little girl grow up, graduate school, fall in love. She watched her mother be born. She watched her take first steps, speak first words, become the woman Elena remembered from childhood. And she watched her die in 2031, exactly as history recorded, exactly as Elena came back to prevent. Elena couldn't intervene, couldn't warn, couldn't touch. She witnessed her mother's entire life from beginning to end, invisible, helpless, present for every moment she could never share. Elena's final statement was recorded by another paradox refugee. Her voice is calm, hollow, emptied of everything except exhaustion. I came back to save her. I watched her entire life. She never knew I existed. And I couldn't save her. I couldn't save anyone. What if the price of traveling through time is becoming invisible to everyone you came back to save? What if some journeys only lead to witnessing everything you cannot change? Perhaps time doesn't want to be altered. Perhaps it protects itself by erasing those who try. Elena Sato learned that lesson, and she carries it with her through every timeline she can never belong to. 10 survivors, 10 journeys through time, and every single one of them paid the same price: invisibility to the people they loved most. These aren't just stories, they're warnings. That time is not a river we can navigate. It's an ocean that drowns those who try. If these cases resonated with you, subscribe now and join the thousands already here, because some truths only reveal themselves to those willing to see them. And the question remains, if you traveled through time, would anyone remember you came home?